My name is Victor Forsell. I'm an analyst here at ABG within the healthcare sector. And we have the honor to have Staffan Ternström here today, the CEO of Handicare. Welcome, Staffan.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon and welcome back after lunch. I just want to say this before here that I was supposed to be co-represented with the new CFO of Handicare. And she's still with us. She's just homesick in fever. So the reason why Pernilla is not coming up with me here today is because she's sick. So just want to note that up front. So welcome to Handicare. What I would like to do here over the next 20 minutes is talk a little bit about what we do, potentially why it would be an idea to invest in us, and how we do, and also plan to do in the future. So if we look at Handicare, normally, or if when I stood here last time, we actually had another business unit which we divested. But Handicare, what are we about? We're about making everyday life easier. And we have two main business segments, accessibility and patient handling, where we do this. And if we look into our accessibility business, which is a little bit more than half our business, it really consists of two areas. One which is stair lifts, and another one which is vehicle accessibility, or where we convert cars. If we start to look at what we do in our stair lifts business, which I would consider really the jewel in the crown, or the best business we have with us, we work in two segments. One is straight stair lifts, and this is a picture of the newly launched 1100, which I've been talking about if you've been following us. And those we kind of sell off the shelf against inventory, mainly with our dealers. If we then look at the more advanced, where you normally have a staircase that's taking some curve, what we do is that we do custom made, or bespoke as it's always called. This is a variant called Freelift, from Freelift in Netherlands, where we have one of our manufacturing plants. And then when we look into how do you kind of fit one of those stair lifts, we have a small iPad here, you can say. We put some markers in the staircase, we take photos of it, and then we can adjust that stair lift to fit in for every bespoke stair lift. And when we push a button there, it goes to a drawing office, which is a CAD office, and then it goes automatically into different bending machines, cutting machines, and then welding machines. So we make those staircases fully fit to the purpose. This is a business which we mainly across the globe serve our end customers through dealers, with the exception of two countries where we also do some direct business vis-a-vis the end customer. So obviously working with a dealer and get them to take more and more of your products and help them to do better and better business is one of the keys to success in this business. So this is the stair lift business, and I'll come back to that a little bit, what drives that business later on. Then we work in Denmark and Norway in a business called vehicle accessibility, and that's where we convert cars. So normally we are making a contract with the government, and then we refit cars for normally disabled people. We do this in Denmark and Norway. And we have 6 workshops in Denmark and 13 workshops in Norway where we'll do this. So very local business. We also have a small export business where we do sell certain floors and some other accessories, which we kind of gain the knowledge around. Local business, roughly 40-45 million around that business. And that's accessibility, and normally elderly and disabled people here. If you look at patient handling, it's a business which is more oriented towards the institutional care, or what you could say hospitals or long-term care. And we are in 3 segments. So we normally talk about ceiling track hoists, which lifts a patient up and down. And normally the patient gets into a sling like this. And we can either put those in ramps in the roof, and then work with patients and safely handling them. Or we could also use mobile lifts and also move patients. And finally, we have a business where we help, what should I say, facilitating your movements in the bathroom in a safe way as well. And you probably, if you've been to some kind of what we in Sweden would call a handicap or a toilet for disabled, you've probably seen those two levers here which you can pull up and down. So that's kind of where we work. So roughly 150 million here, roughly 40 to 45 here, and 70 to 75 in this business. If we look at Handicare a little bit more in numbers, I alluded to it. We did sell off Pulse, which was a distribution business, and that's something we said we want to do over time. We're never going to get us the margins or the growth that we're looking for. We are short of a 300 million euro business, and here you can do the math, but roughly then in accessibility is our biggest business. With mainly our accessibility business, we are in home care. What we say is home care, we're getting into the homes. And some of the business is also in the institutional, which we then can look in would be then long-term institutional or acute institutional. And per definition, then this is our patient handling business, or most of it. We do some patient handling home care as well. We have a split globally where we mainly Europe dominated, and it's really Western Europe where we do most of our business. A couple of years ago, we bought Prism. This was second half of 2016, and that gave us a bigger footprint in North America. It's also part of that business, which we had some challenges over the period. And then the main markets where we do some business is China and Japan abroad, and it's mainly through some of our patient handling business, but otherwise mostly our stair lifts business. When we look at our global footprint, we do some manufacturing in China. Stair lifts is mainly in Birmingham and in Amsterdam, or just outside those two relatively big cities for stair lifts. And that's a good thing for us when we're facing Brexit. So we do curved stair lifts and straight stair lifts in both those markets. So it means that we can supply our British market, which is the biggest market we have, even after a very hard Brexit. We have our headquarters in North America in St. Louis, and then we also have some operations up in Toronto, and that's the kind of the main sites. Then obviously we have a number of sales offices across the world. So why would we invest in? Why could someone invest in Handicare? Why would that be a good idea? And I think the first one is to talk about is really there are some really good demographic fundamentals behind this business, and I share a few numbers. One which is important for us in our patient handling business, because with the exception of moving the patient very safely from one location, from a bed to a wheelchair, or actually from a bed into another seating or another bed, the main benefit of our patient handling business is that we actually do save backs of healthcare workers. And if you look at one number, stunning number, is 10 nurses leave the work every day in the UK due to musculoskeletal or back problems in the UK. So that's obviously a very important thing for us to save backs. But not only to save backs. Today you could see a patient which is being moved from one bed to another, and there is 4 people on one side and there's 4 people on the other side. By helping some of the solutions we have be well trained on them, obviously you can not only move that patient safer, but also with less manpower or women power, which is an important thing from a health economic standpoint. So that's an important thing. If we look at people who potentially could use our stair lifts going forward, in the UK there is roughly 5.4 million people who is of the age of 75 as an indicator, and more than 75, and there's 1.6 which is 85 and older, and those would be the biggest beneficiaries of normally stair lifts. Those population groups are prone to double in the next 20 years. So we really see a lot of potential future customers in need of stair lifts in a country like UK, and obviously this goes for the full Western world. And as I said, there are certain good healthcare economics in saving a back for a young employee in the healthcare. That's one very important thing. But also when you think about all this elderly population, that if they can't move around and stay in their home, they need to go into some kind of normally institution. And that costs a lot of money. But it also, the other big thing is that actually that most elderly people would like to stay at home and become older in their homes. So a few really nice drivers, and I come back to those, what it means in terms of numbers. If you look at where we are today, there's obviously a mix of this because we play in different areas. If you look at our auto businesses in the 2 countries where we work, we have a market share of 40 to 50%. So we are a big player in Denmark and Norway where we convert cars. If you look into our stair lifts business, we have a good footprint. We sometimes call ourselves number 2, sometimes number 3 globally. We have a good portfolio. And then in patient handling, you could say it differs a little bit where we are. In US, we still have some work to do in terms of our market position. If you look into Canada, for instance, we have a very strong position with a good market leadership. We have normally good quality and reliability of our products, and we have been the innovators. During a couple of years, we have maybe not been there, but that's a space that we intend to get back to. We do work, as I said, when we talk hospitals and institution, we mainly work with a direct sales force that goes into those institutions and deliver the value of our products. When we talk about the stair lifts business, we normally work through dealers, and there could be a number of types of dealers, big companies, but it could also be very often a father and his 2 sons. That's actually normally how it looks like, who are doing a stair lifts business or some kind of lifting business. So they look very different. What our mantra is to try to improve their business, both on top line so they can do more and better business, and also how we can help them to do a more profitable business. And we also do help them with leads that comes into us, and then we send them over. So a good there. We were able to respond well to our customer needs, and potentially, with the exception of US institutional, we do gain market share or are flat in market shares. If you look at our platform today, I think I just comment on this one. We have a very good production platform, which is not to its full capacity. In US, definitely we can use that more, but if you look at our 2 stair lifts manufacturing plants, they're roughly operating at 60% capacity, so we can continue to scale up there and do more. And the other thing that we started to move into is to get more out of consumables. So you remember those slings that we hang up the patients and move the patients in? A way for us to get more recurring revenue is to push those products. So when we sell an installation project, we also sell those slings and make sure they either get that patient specific and you can use them as a consumable in a way. And then in most places, again, with potentially with the exception where we're working very hard to turn the direction, we have a good commercial strategy and good tactics, I would say, behind it that we've been able to work through. We are in a set of markets, and we have a good opportunity to continue to globally expand a good product portfolio, and we have some opportunities for M&A going forward. If we look at the market from a numbers point of view, we are acting in a close to $2 billion euro marketplace. Have some decent position in stair lifts, which is still a growing market. Auto is not growing that much, and I think that's something which is actually good because that is normally to disabled people, and that's a relatively flat market. But stair lifts, driven by the demographics, has a good growth in Europe. and an even higher growth in the US. And if you then look at the stair lifts market here, you can see we have a much smaller share in the US, and that's the market we rely on growing over time, and it has been a growth driver for us as well. So we need to continue to get that moving in the future. And there is good room for growth, and we have a good, I would say, setup for stair lifts in the US. If we look at patient handling, a little bit slower growth in the market in Western Europe, and US have a slightly higher growth. And this is obviously where we do have our challenge in North America. We do very well in Canada. In Canada, who had legislation behind safe patient handling a number of years ago, we've been able to penetrate 50% of the relevant wardrooms that is in healthcare in Canada, and we've been doing that and getting a 40% market share. If you look into the US, that market has only been penetrated to 15%, and our market share is much smaller. So US is where we need to turn around the business and also continue to grow. So all in all, a decently healthy marketplace, where in some markets we have some good opportunities. Clearly, when we look at this, there are more markets we can get into in terms of patient handling. Western Europe, we are mainly Netherlands, UK, the Nordics directly, so we can move into some of the other Western European countries, and something we are looking at. With stair lifts, we are also mainly in Western Europe and US and North America. There's more markets to go. But also when we look at our stair lifts business, there is an opportunity for us to look at what are those dealers that we're serving also selling. And if you think about in front of a normal home, you have a stair lift in the home. Sometimes you have a few stairs to get up. So vertical platform lifts, as they are called, is another type of lift we also could serve that dealer with. So that's something we're looking at to potentially see how we can expand our business. Probably not organically, would be through some kind of acquisition or partnership. I think that's it on that. And if we then look at how has it been so far, so we're a little bit disappointed with the first half year and the second quarter. We were up against a very tough second quarter, but our growth so far has mainly been flat. Stair lift has been more or less in line what we would expect. Somewhere between 6 and 8-9% is probably what we would look at, a little bit better last year. So we are happy with that. We had a little bit of margin leakage, not on the pricing level, but on other things. So we can do a little bit better on that. If we look at our auto business, it has a lower revenue, and for some of you who followed us know that we had supply with cars into Norway last year. We are seeing a regaining of those cars, even if takes us a little bit time to get back those tenders. So our Norwegian business is actually doing pretty well, but the Danish market has been a little bit slower for us as well, and we also can probably step up our competitiveness there. And then if we look at the patient handling growth, the European business has been more or less flat the first half year, a little bit varying between the quarters. And then our North American business, which I would say is one of the trigger points for us, and very important to get right. We were able to grow that sequentially, something that I did talk about that we intend to do. And I come to how it looks a little bit going forward. And then we declined slightly on our EBITDA margin, and maybe that has to do a little bit with the mix of the business. If we look into the second half, I think we have some solid plans to drive growth somewhere in the range of our guidance for the second half of the year. I think we see very good stair lifts momentum in that business, and we do launch 1100, which is the stair lift you actually see on the picture. We launched that globally, and we have US coming up and North America coming up end of this quarter. So that we see continue to grow well. Vehicle accessibility, we also see a good growth in that for the second half, will put us roughly on the level where we were last year. And then patient handling, I think I thought this a little bit earlier, that would turn around a little bit quicker than what we actually do. We got new management in February. He has been working very hard on assessing the sales force. We are now shifting roughly 1/3 of that sales force, and it's 14 of them in the US. So that will take us a little bit longer time, especially since the pipeline we generate through this sales force takes us up to 18 to 24 months to install a new project. We work with architects very early in the sales cycle, and then obviously. So there may be take a little bit longer than we thought. I thought in the past that it would happen second half of this year. When we look at it now, we believe it's going to be first or second quarter next year. We have a clear line of sight to an improved margin for the second half. We work very hard on making sure that we make 1100 a successful launch. And we are looking at some acquisitions, and the macro trends remain favorable. So in summary, are we on time or? Okay. So focus, obviously turning around the North American business. Make sure that we continue to work to be that best choice for the dealers, which we are in many cases, and we're learning from that and improving that. We are launching 1100 in all our key markets. Something I've been working very hard on since I came in here is to start to create a process for developing products and solutions, but then obviously putting in new products or solutions into that. So we have a few very interesting things coming up. And then since we've been buying a number of different companies, we also have a little bit of a portfolio which are needs to be harmonized and where we can drive number of codes. We have certain process improvement, and we are investing in the organization, not only sales, but also certain other capabilities, quality, regulatory, IT, and a few other things, which is important for us. And then we're looking at M&A for the future. So in summary, if I just try to round off this, we are doing business in a non-cyclical market, with a good underlying growth. So if you believe in that marketplace, I think that's a good one, with some very strong demographic drivers and a good health economic value proposition. We have, in most cases, a competitive product portfolio, and in most cases, good market positions. I would argue we have excellent commercial execution in stair lifts in 90% of the cases in countries, and we do need to turn around North America, something I haven't been able to succeed on so far, but we're working very, very hard on. We had flat development first half 2019, and we're projecting a step up in the second half. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Staffan. I have a few questions here I think we have time for. So I'll start up with a question regarding the US. And I think you alluded to it in your presentation somewhat, but what are within your control, and what would you say are beyond your control in this US turnaround? If you could spend some time on this matter, and also is it something about the competition as well, or could you elaborate a bit on that?
So I think this is obviously a very important question, and when you look at what we can do, and a question I get sometimes is also about the products. Are the products okay? I think we've seen in a number of prestigious customers. You probably heard about the Mayo Clinic. There is another big called BJC, and there is another one big called Partners, just to name three very prestigious hospital networks which are chosen to go with us, and so on. If we look at Canada, we are able to capture a 40% market share in a well-penetrated market. So I would argue that the products and the offering in general, it's not the issue. I think we had some turnover. We had not fully integrated our business. So I would say it's getting the right people in, meaning the sales people or the commercial people, and that takes a little bit of time from the top, from Tom Vorpal, our new president, and then the VP of sales and the others. Then it's equipping them with the right training and the right selling message and steer them on the right portfolio, and then obviously putting the right incentive program, and then getting that to work and see obviously how certain things change tomorrow, but then obviously see how the pipeline builds over time, and we hopefully can deliver more projects. So I think it's more or less in our control, but I would argue we need to improve our commercial execution, and that's obviously a few different factors in that.
Yeah. And just lastly, a quick one regarding, we've seen your guidance here for the second half of the year. What would you say would differ between reaching the upper part or the lower part of that guidance? What has to happen in those both scenarios?
That I can answer pretty quickly. That's the U.S. business, how that moves.
So it's only.
So that's the uncertainty we have in that business, right. Which is still very hard to see exactly when it comes through.
Thank you very much, Staffan, for coming.
Thank you. Thanks.